In the last episode we got the radiator mounted, we made the aluminium box, we cut the boot floor out, we mounted the 2 radiator fans, and we've got the radiator in securely. This time we're going to make all the aluminium water pipes to run from the front to the rear, back again in the circulating system. That'll all be done in 38mm tube, and we will do the wiring and the relays and such like for the EWP150 boost water pump we're using, and the 2 fans. Set up the Haltech, make sure that's all okay to control those, fill it up with water, and hope we're okay. And that will be it. Rear mount radiator done. So join us. Aluminium pipes next. Radiator in, fans in, shrouds done. We're pretty pleased with that. Next job, water pump. And this is going to go on the line between the radiator and the engine. So the hot water from the engine comes in and goes in the top of the radiator in there, and the cooled water comes out the bottom, which is exactly where we put this. This is the pump inlet and this is the outlet, which will go back to the cold side of the engine inlet. So the easiest way to mount this is with a bit of silicone about this long, and put it straight on that radiator outlet. Job done. And then we can come out of here with a 90 and up here, and then we can start running the pipes to the front. So dead easy job. So we'll go and cut some silicone about 3 inches long and put that on there. You don't need any other brackets for that because that short silicone will support it.
That's the easy bit done. That was nothing. Now we've got to get the water from the engine to the boot. Good game. First things first, we can't run the water pipes underneath the car the whole way because there's a subframe in the way. So what we're going to have to do is run the pipes down next to the gearbox where the old exhaust used to go, and then into the car at the back of the tunnel, into the cabin, and then round up the back of the seat, and then in the top of the seat where the seat used to be, and then into the back. That's going to be a nightmare.
So the first job is to get the 50mm hole saw out and chop some holes to get the pipes through. This is just above the fuel tank, which will take us through from the boot area to the rear seat area. And because this is double skinned, we cut the holes in from both sides. Time to start chopping tube now. The chop saw certainly makes short work of going through that, and it gives us a nice square cut to start with for the next process, which is getting ready for welding. Here we're making one of the tubes that goes down the rear seat, so a 90-degree bend on the bottom of there. We're just tigging this, aluminium tigs, of course it's on AC, and we get a nice job. We also need to roll beads on the end of the pipes, and it's much easier to do it in short lengths when they're straight. So here's our homemade bead roller, and this has done a lot of pipes in its time. We simply turn the pipe round with a ratchet on one end, and we keep nipping down the top bolt, and we get a nice bead. Once we've made the pipes with the beads rolled on them, we put a blank bung in one end and we put a bung with a Schrader valve in the other, and that allows us to connect up the airline so we can pressurise the pipes and check for leaks. The system's designed to run 15 to 20 psi max, so we test them at 30, and if we suspect any leaks we use soapy water in the squirty bottle here, and that'll show any bubbles. Leon can then mark them up with a Sharpie and tell me how bad my welding's been. So after days of cutting and welding and fiddling, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pipes. That makes up our system. Hooray! On the two longest pipes we also added a drain port into each of them so we can get the fluid out easily. There's a huge amount of thought and effort goes into getting the pipes to fit and splitting them in the right places to get them in and out. But anyway, we've done it. These were the most difficult, the longest ones, but everything's come together nicely. Let's start fitting everything in. Before we get to the excitement of fitting pipes, we need to make a couple of brackets first. So first job, we dig through the scrap bin and find a nice bit of strip steel and weld a couple of M6 nuts to the back of it. These will be captive. The reason for doing this is that I can't drill through the bulkhead between the rear seat and the petrol tank because the petrol tank's behind it. So it's better to make these brackets, and we'll have them spaced off a little, and that will allow us to bolt the pipes onto P-clips without having the bolts go through near the petrol tank, which would be a bad thing, especially if I drilled through it trying to mount them. A bit of precision hammering makes a nice Z-shaped bracket with the captive nut on the back, and then we can put them in place on the seat back, weld those on, and we've got a nice welded bracket there with no risk of holes going through into fuel tanks. Now we've got that bracketry out of the way, we can get the pipes installed now. So the first pipes that have to go in are these two that go up the back of the rear seat, and we've deliberately put no joins in these, so within the cabin it minimises the potential leak points. Now you'd have thought the two short pipes that go beside the engine would be the easiest, but they were the hardest. This is looking down the right hand side of the engine, and we've got the steering rack at the bottom, the engine mount in the middle, and the exhaust manifold at the top. And that proved to be a real nightmare. So what we did, the feed coming from the radiator goes at the bottom because that runs the coolest and it's furthest away from the manifold. And the pipe at the top is the return from the engine to the radiator. That runs over the engine mounting beside the exhaust manifold, and if it picks up a bit of heat it doesn't matter, it's going to the radiator. So you can see here with the pipes there's a certain orientation you've got to get them both in, and then they just drop in. If you get that orientation wrong, they won't go in at all. This was really difficult, it took a lot of thought, but we got there in the end. And then once they're installed, we put P-clips at the front, so the top one mounts on the alternator bracket and the bottom one off the side of that stump flange. It's time to put the long centre section pipes in now. So these go in, there's a particular order, as with everything else on these pipes. So we start off just by pushing the rear end of it onto the silicone joiner for the pipe that comes down through the floor. And then we can fiddle the front end of it so it's just about in place. And that allows us to get the second pipe, and we can get that one fitted in beside it. They don't weigh much, they're just a bit awkward because they're about 7 feet long. Okay, that'll do. So same thing here, we just push the rear end of it onto the silicone to hold that into place, and then we can put a couple of P-clips in the centre of them. These are rubber lined so they don't damage the pipes, and they'll hold them in place. And then we can then go to the front where it goes past the engine mounting, and we can get both of these pipes fitted onto the short silicone length we've got there again. We had to put a join in just to be able to get the pipes in. There's one on, and here's the second one going on. And again, once they're on, everything just holds itself in place. It's just a bit fiddly. There we go, that's gone on nicely. And now we can get the P-clips mounted at the back. So this one we just made it off the prop shaft retainer, and then we can bolt that up. And you can see here it's come together as a nice job under there, and just how tight it is to get it past the right hand engine mounting there. But everything comes out in the right place. We split it each side of the alternator. Time for the rear pipes. Last job on these rear pipes. They're the highest point in the system, and therefore we need to put a couple of barbs. So Leon machined these aluminium barbs up, and I'm just welding them on the pipe here so we can put breather pipes through over onto the header tank. That'll allow the system to self-bleed while it's running. When you're welding small barbs onto pipes, it's always best to weld them on and then drill the hole afterwards. It saves you getting the hole in the wrong place or welding over it. So the pipes on the front go on pretty easily. They're just 90-degree bends with the straight sections between them. And you can see here the two pipes cross over. That's a nice neat job, and look at all that room we've got now.
That's all the pipe work done. Now we've got the small problem of the radiator cap being lower than the highest point of the system. That's no good. We cannot bleed that and we don't want to be able to bleed it through a 6mm little hole because it won't work. That's the way.
It's like a day's job to fill the water.
Day's job to fill the water. Right, so what we've done is bought one of these. It's an expansion bottle, 15 quid off eBay off a Fiesta or something like that. I don't know, it's a Ford. And this allows us to have a proper fill and two proper air bleeds. And what we're going to do is put it there, mount it in space there off the rear passenger shelf or the radiator or something like that, and that'll allow us to be able to fill the radiator in a reasonable amount of time and also bleed the radiator properly. So,
yep. The other thing is that it's clear, so we can see the water level, which we've never been able to do before, and we've got the max and min marks, so that'll just make it a little bit easier for working on. There's only one snag.
Go on.
Ford. It'll probably be the first part that breaks on the Lexus.
It's off a Ford.
Because it's off a Ford.
It's off a Ford.
Right, okay. I think we'll make a bracket first, and then we'll sort the pipe work out and weld a union on the radiator for that to go to.
Happy days.
Bracket time. So it's out with a measuring stick so we can work out what size we need. Get these measurements and get it planned out. And then it's over to the croquet lawn. Cardboard aided design, Sharpie comes out, steel rule, we can mark all this out. Once it's marked we can cut it neatly along the lines, put the folds in, and then we can go and try it in the car, see if it's going to look like it fits. Here's our cardboard template. I think that's looking okay there, so we'll make the shelf so it sits on it with a couple of brackets. Yeah, I think we're okay. We'll get that marked out on the steel, get the grinder out and cut it out, stick some bends in, see what we've got. With the bracket cut out, it's over to the sheet metal bender, also known as the Bison hammer. We don't have one of them big fancy ones that will do all sorts of lengths of sheet, so we just use what we've got. It's a good job I'd had plenty of pies this day. It took a bit of bending, but we got there in the end. And then we drill a couple of mounting holes in it. They're going to go up through the speaker holes. And we decided the bracket just looked a bit too heavy and big. So then we chopped half of it back out. With all that done, it's over to Leon outside, and he can get it all welded up while I drink tea in the sunshine. Last bit of welding is an M6 captive nut, which we can use to mount the P-clip for the rear hose. And then we just get the 50mm hole saw out and drill a hole through the end here, because that's going to line up with our breather pipes on the expansion tank. Finally, a rattle can paint job that's suitably befitting of the Project Lexus TurboShed, and that bracket's looking pretty good.
Here's the plate, it's all done, fitting nicely now. Bit of fettling from the CAD template needed, but that's how it goes sometimes. Now all we need to do is put it in, put the expansion bottle on and pipe it all up to the breathers and see if we can pressurise the system.
Yeah, ratchet that's in here. So after getting the bracket, the bottle and the pipe mounted, it's time for the moment of truth. Will the boot lid close? It's definitely just touching. Well, I guess no would be the answer. So it's time to fix that. The only snag we found here is that Lexus boot lids in this area are actually triple skin. There's no wonder these cars weigh so much. The right noise. That is as high as you can get it.
That
we can confirm that.
That is the highest you can get water in this car.
With the tank in, we can plan the fill line, which is going to be this 22mm pipe. So we need a couple of aluminium joiners and a barb for the radiator. We could roll barbs onto the small pipe, but that's not the way we roll. So we've got some inch aluminium here, and we're going to make them out of billet on the CNC lathe. So drink tea, eat biscuits and program. Once we've got that programmed up, we can stick the billet in the lathe and we'll just machine one side of this at a time, and then we'll have ourselves some nice hose joiners. There we are, that goes in. We can close the door, fire the lathe up and drink more tea while we watch the numbers on the screen go round. A couple of minutes later, there we are, that side's done. Turn it round and do the other, and this is what we end up with. We made a couple of those, and that's a nice job. Here's our joiners machined up. They've come up very nicely, and our bits of hose we're going to use. So I've got the barb for the radiator in the end here. So we'll just push these together. It's a pretty nice job. And we'll try it on the car and then work out where this is going to go on the radiator. So we can simply just push the pipes together, and then we can line it up in the car and work out where that barb needs to go at the bottom of the radiator. After that, we just get the radiator out, which is a really simple job now. We don't have all the fans and everything on it. And then we can go on the bench and get this barb welded on. With the radiator back in, we can fit our pipe with our new machined joining pieces and our barb that we welded onto the radiator. That all goes together very nicely. Tighten up the clamps on that, and then we use a modified tyre inflator onto a barb on the radiator, so we can pressurise the system using the airline, which is a lot less messy if you've got leaks. So the idea is we'll slowly take the pressure up to 20 psi, and then we'll hope that the pressure stays in, because if it does, that would be good. We don't just rely on the mechanical gauge, we've got engine coolant pressure on our dash here, ECP, so we simply just watch this for a while and hopefully it stays up. It looks good. Well, we had a couple of hose clamps that just needed nipping up, so nothing major on that. We've got 20 psi sat in there now, and that's been in there for a few minutes. It's reading the same on the dash. We sorted the calibration out on that a little bit. So I think that's it. We are pressure tight. I think we can say that.
Hopefully.
And that's good. The pressure cap's releasing off. That goes off just over 20 psi. It's maybe a few pound higher than we'd like, but we can't adjust it, so that's the way it is. We're almost there with this project, this 2-day project.
3 weeks on.
I think this is week 4 now.
Is it week 4? That's lunch done, and we've come back to check the gauge after lunch, and it's still at 16 psi. So we're going to call that watertight. It's been 45 minutes and it's only lost about £2, so happy with that. So now it's time to fill it full of water, make sure it's watertight properly, and that'll be it. We're going to put the water in 1 litre at a time, just so we can check how much antifreeze to put in afterwards. And we're pretty much finished then, other than a couple of wires.
While Leon puts the water in the back, I release the air bleeds at the front, and we'll keep filling it till the water comes out of these bleeds.
That's 11 just gone in. $15. $17.
So my vote now is fire up the EWP.
We need to put a wire to it first.
That of course was a very good point by Leon. So it's out with the step drill. We'll drill through the bulkhead so we can put a grommet in, and that allows us to put 3 heavy duty 4mm squared wires from the cabin through into the boot where we're going to put the relays. We get the power for these heavy duty wires from our main battery isolator switch, obviously the other side to the battery. So the isolate, we've got inline fuses there, 20 and 30 amp. So we solder those in, the inline fuses, put the insulation tape on, and that means that we've got power through into the boot. We connect those up to the battery isolator switch so we've got a good feed. Our 3 relays are installed and we can short the EWP one out for now. And there we hear it gurgling away as it's priming. It's working! Hooray!
We've put 20 litres of water in this now, and we bypassed the EWP relay and let it through, got some water going, and it seems to be okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put 20 psi pressure in the system, make sure it's all good with water in it as well. And if that's all fine, then it's time to wire up the pump and the fans properly and actually start the car and run it up to temperature.
Is that 20?
20. And the relief cap's gone.
Have a look around for air, water leaks.
I think we're all fine.
I think so. That's £20.
There's no water coming out of anywhere.
Yep. Level looks good.
Get the air out.
Do you want to just flip the EWP on with pressure in, make sure that's okay? So we just need to run the signal wires for the relays now. So we run a couple of wires through our grommets. That's okay. And we've got 2 outputs on the Haltech, so we connect into those. Obviously we're soldering them here, having disconnected the ECU. Crimp the connectors on the other end and put it onto our relays. We've got the EWP and 1 fan on one line and the big fan on a second line. So simple job to crimp those up and get that connected. And then we can then go back to the front. We can reconnect the Haltech because you never solder with a connected ECU. And then we can program in the 2 thermofan functions on the Haltech so we can set them at different temperatures. And obviously in this case we're going to set them low so we can try it without the engine being too hot and make sure everything's working right. There we are, DPO 3 is assigned to thermofan 2 there. And here we can check them. The left hand fan's running there, that's okay, the smaller one. Put the signal through to the second fan, the SPAL. The wiring's working, the signal's working, everything's good. The next job's to get the rear bumper off, because those fans are no use without any airflow going through them. So why have we taken the rear bumper off to do a rear mount radiator? Well, the simple answer is, when we're using it on the road, we need to get air in and out. And the air is going to go in the top of the radiator and out the bottom. And with the standard boot lid, there's no way for the air to get in. We're due to have another boot lid arriving, which we're going to vent for use for drifting, so we'll cut the whole top out of it out, but that hasn't turned up yet. So for road use and drag strip and stuff, we want to keep the standard boot lid, sleeper look, and the best place to vent the boot is here. We already have some holes here that are used for the body side vents when you open and close doors and stuff. So basically we're going to cut all the metal away everywhere we can, so it all goes behind the bumper so you can't see it, and we think that'll be okay. So, electric hacksaw, safety goggles, let's go.
Vented.
That is vented. With all of that area cut out, we can grind off all the sharp edges with a pad to make sure that we don't cut ourselves. Safety first, of course. And here you can see the holes in the left and right hand sides. And they're at least as big as the area for the radiator, so we should be able to get enough cooling through this under normal use. That's our plan, not for drifting. We'll do the boot lid for drifting. Look, you can even fit a Leon in. So once we've got the rear bumper back on, we can drill some holes, and we're going to use these to put nutserts in so we can tidy up some of the wiring. This side on the left is the original wiring, and on the right hand side we've got the wiring for our new relays. So there we're just using some M6 nutserts with our favourite nutsert tool. And then we can get them bolted in, get the wiring tidied up, and stand back and see what we've got. You can see here we've managed to retain the sleeper look that we've been looking for all along. All that work and you can't see any of it. Until you look underneath, or lift the boot lid of course. Well, after what, 4 weekends, I think.
Weekends.
So it's just been over 3 weeks we've done this. That's 8 days we've worked on this for that 2-day job. We're finally done. We have a rear mount radiator, electric boost pump, we have the electric fans in the back. We've got them set up on 2 different circuits with the Haltech for control, so we can stage how the fans and the boost pump come in. We've got different idle settings for them, so it'll automatically idle up as well. I think that's been a mammoth job, and we've achieved nothing. Well, that's what it looks like, and that was part of the idea. What this car's about. You can look at this car at a glance and think, look at that thing, and then you look a bit deeper and go, oh,
It's a bit more than just the stock LS.
so when you look a bit deeper,
There's a radiator in the boot.
there's not many Lexus LS400s have got one of those hiding away in there. So the only work we've got to do is we've got another boot lid on the way, and we're going to fully vent that, but it hasn't arrived, so we've done what we've got. And I think that's it. A successful project. Can't wait to get it out on the road and the track and test it.
Can't wait.
Yep. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. We hope you've enjoyed this mammoth journey of fabrication and work that we've done. We almost went to binky levels of bracketry at times. And we've even tidied the wiring up without using cable ties. We never do that.
Yeah, we've used a lot of cable ties.
So that's it. Thank you very much for watching and supporting us. And please join us next time, where we're probably going to be doing probably the rear differential, because it's currently leaking out of every possible place.
I think all the seals and the rear.
Every seals
Face is gone.
and the rear face are leaking. So I think we need to pull the diff out and fix that. So that's it. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you soon.